Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. It's only a few hours after posting the last video on my end, and I'm already kind of getting going, putting the room back together after taking the ceiling down. Right off the bat, thank you all for your support in that last video, your encouraging words regarding the future sponsorship, and all the comments regarding the project and thinking that some of my jokes are funny. Much appreciated. As far as putting this room back together, I'm going to be sistering on 2x6s onto the existing rafters. What I'm going to do to try to straighten things out the best I can is I have this string going across that is nice and level, did that with a line level, and then I have a string on this side. So the string is right here going all the way across. So that is going to be my reference line. So this will create a ceiling that's all one plane and not twisted, and then that is going to in the end straighten everything out on this side. Since that ridge beam falls, that string up there is level. Then you can see, reference that against the ridge beam. So it's pretty much sort of parallel to it here, but then it kind of arches up there at the end. These are 2x8s and they're several inches below those, and then these are all only 2x6s on this side and they're flush with the bottom. It's about 4 inches out. So you can reference that line, and then I'm going to have those collars, those cross pieces going from one rafter to the next. So the wall will go up, it'll come out flat, and then it's going to taper down behind me to the string. So I'm just going to sister on all those 2x6s, dropping them down, making contact to the string, and then nail them off on the rafters. Before we get started, I want to show you one quick thing, and it's sort of a tip, but here in the house, this attic fan was already in here when I bought the place, but it wasn't hooked up. The cord was coming down to the actual switch. So this is a thermostat, and then it's wired into the normal wiring in the house, and once the attic hits a certain temperature, this kicks on and exhausts air out of your attic. So it would pull air in through the soffit venting or gable venting, whatever kind of venting you have, and then that goes out. That doesn't mean it's going to really cool your attic, but it's going to make a difference between your attic being 140 degrees, maybe getting it down to about 100 to 120 degrees, and then that's going to make your AC system run a lot more efficiently and just get all that hot air out regardless of what kind of cooling you got going on. So this could be a good option for some of you out there, and this actually, I believe, extends your shingle life as well, making sure that you're not baking your shingles from underneath. Flip it over. Some of you probably noticed these 2x6s are not running all the way up to the ridge beam. All I'm really going for is to have strength in the center. Since the drywall runs all the way down here, the new drywall will intersect with the existing drywall. I pulled them tight to the actual wall, and then up here left them short. Otherwise I would have had to buy 12-foot pieces just to come up to the ridge beam, but that's not actually doing anything for me here. I'm just trying to stiffen up the rafters. I'll have those cross pieces come in here. They'll probably come across and about to this line, so the actual nailing surface of the drywall won't have anything to do with up here at the ridge beam. I'm always getting comments on my nail gun. It's a framing nail gun. I got this one from Harbor Freight. And all you do with a nail gun is they come in different degrees. You just drop the nails in the tray, slides forward, drop another one in, and then release that lock. That's spring loaded, that pushes them in. There's a pneumatic plunger, so this is running off of a air compressor. This whole thing is basically like a big cylinder up in here. So all you do is you just pull the trigger. When y'all see me doing the really fast nailing, how these work is you can hold the trigger down and then you can just hit it against the board. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to You push down the little safety mechanism on the front, and then you pull the trigger. I don't like doing that because a lot of times it double nails. Because when you hit it, the gun has a little recoil, and then when you recoil, you're holding down the trigger, and then the weight of it goes back, and you end up firing 2 nails, so it can be a little bit dangerous. So I just like holding it down, and it's just one hit, one nail. Another advantage to a nail gun when you're holding that button down, instead of depressing it first then pulling the trigger, when you hit it, it knocks your 2 pieces you're nailing together. In this case, if that board's not perfectly straight, or the one I'm nailing it against is a little warped, cut, twisted, whatever it is, that actual hitting it drives them together really tight at that point right when they're nailed, instead of you having to push and squeeze them together before you nail them. Over on this side so you can nail it. Alright.
Vanilla ice cream with a bunch of M&Ms in it.
So United Ways, this area, for graduation.
God, that was awful.
Huh?
That was awful. Much better. All the rafters have been sistered, so now what I'm going to do is put in those collars. The collars are the cross ties that sort of hold each side of the roof together. That's going to give support to the roof, and then it's also going to be the nailing surface for the new drywall. So the roof will go, the ceiling will go up and then flatten out for about 1.5 feet or so, and then drop down the wall, the knee wall that I'm going to add in there. So that string just happens to be dead on perfect. It wasn't because I did it on purpose before. I just measured off the ridge beam, but the ridge beam is kind of crazy. So I ran a level up the wall, let it stick up, measured from the outside level over to the string, and it was 22.5 inches. So that's how big the flat spot is going to be on top of the, in the high spot in the ceiling in here. So that will just get nailed off. I put a pencil mark where the string is on each rafter. String will come down, the collar will be nailed on. It's just going to be a 2x4. So I'll tack it close to level, right at that pencil mark, put the level on there, and drop it to perfect level, and nail it off on the rafter on the other side of the wall. Oh yeah, 4 feet's not hard this time. Now we'll do that side. So that was one side. Now we're going to get this opposite side and then snap a chalk line across those dark rafters in the back, and then we'll fill in. Or we might put a string up and just drop it down to strings on both sides. A line on the rafter is good, but the string just lets you drop it right to the string versus the chalk line, you have to kind of guess if you're lined up, and if you're not perfect angle, that can be a little tricky. Here's the first collar, and then you can see the other one down on the other end. This first string is the intersection between the flat section of ceiling and then the slope section, and then this string here in the back, that's just a reference, so that has nothing to do with where they intersect with these. So all of the collars will be nailed to the sides of the rafters, touching this string, and then drop them down and make contact with that one, and then that will create a flat plane once the drywall is added. It's a little after 10, so I'm going to go ahead and call it for the evening. I'm making a lot of noise using a miter saw, so I don't want the neighbors to hate me. What I've got done, if you can see it, I don't know if the light's going to mess it up, but I've got the top and bottom plates for the little knee wall that's going to go on top of this wall cut. All of the collars are in except the ones on the ends, but I'm going to fit those in at the afterwards, and then I'll kind of come in here and frame this out, but I need to figure out the ducting situation first. You can see that box that splits it into different runs of 6-inch flex duct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a doubled up top and bottom plate on the wall. That will be fit in. This side is the smallest dimension, and then this side is about 5/8 of an inch out from the other side. So I'm going to make the wall one consistent height. I'm not going to have the wall be tapered, and then I'm going to shim under the wall and jam it up tight to the collars. I'll have all of the little studs in that knee wall be 16 inches on center, and then I'll go back and also add a stud underneath each one of those collars, and I'm doubling up the bottom and the top plate to where any kind of spanning between the ceiling joists in the bathroom is a little extra, just more stiff. So that's it for the evening. I'll see you tomorrow. It's the next day. It's about 1 p.m. People are always wondering what time I get started on the project, so usually it's about midday, anywhere between noon and probably 2 is the average. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later, just whenever I can fit it in. What I'm doing right now is I've got a level going across the ceiling joist for the bathroom that sit on top of this wall. And so the measurement of the wall that I'm going to be able to fill this space in is going to be based off the bottom of that level up to that collar. This is the small end of the wall. That side should be 5/8 of an inch taller, but I'm going to shim the wall out. My measurement is 17.5 inches, so that is how tall my wall would be if I jammed it in here tight. So I'm going to drop that back 1/4 of an inch, build this wall, and then frame, nail it up to those collars, and then shim it out on the bottom. Since the wall is 17.25 inches tall, I'll be doubling up the bottom and the top plate. That means that I need 11.25 inch studs. What I'm doing there is 17.25 inch is the total height of the wall. So I need to come off 6 inches, since each 2x4 is 1.5 inches. That's a total of 6 inches worth of horizontal pieces. So the studs need to be 11.25. It makes no difference, but I wish I would have done this wall the other way. Now that I've done this and I'm taking some of the pressure is going into this wall. Before, this wall was just a partition and it had that low ceiling, so I didn't have enough room for headers over top the bathroom and the closet door. I'm going to go ahead and cut the plate of this wall out, and then I'm going to drop in a header and then go from the header up to the knee wall. So that is going to make this opening structural as well as the one to the closet. So I'll have to make some slight changes to the ceiling joists, which the ceiling joists in here are just 2x4s in the bathroom. So I'm going to cut them off flush with the outside of the wall. Luckily these are just sitting on top of this wall for now. So I'll sawzall those off, and then afterwards I'll put some hangers on each one of these into that header. Turning out to be a long, tired, tuckersome day. And the wall, I think, reflects it. It looks a little crazy, but all is going to be okay. Probably the better thing would have been to do is just to tear this wall out, reframe it, do the headers a normal way, and just have those studs go all the way up. The little knee wall thing, I kind of kept thinking of this idea, then the next idea, and the next idea. I was having to adjust as I went. But that's the way things are. In the end, the wall will work perfect, and drywall will, of course, be nice, flat, and smooth. So now that I've done all this work, now I've got a nice flat wall the distance from here to where the wall will then start sloping down the ceiling, that's nice and even. Sistering on all those rafters, straightening out the line across the back side of the wall here. Everything is going to look really nice and flat when that new drywall goes in. And then we have the older wall. So you might not be able to tell, but they're really not that pretty. Not talking about the color, but then you've got tape seams and stuff that are kind of popping and bubbled and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and tear the drywall out of the bedroom up here, and then when I have all the drywall done, this whole upstairs, ceilings and walls and the bedroom and the bathroom, all that is going to be re-drywalled completely.
Still Calypsonian. Tell me about that, because my dad is a massive fan of Mike Sparrow. I grew up
That's my father's favorite artist of all time, Sparrow. To him, like, he's the greatest songwriter that ever lived. To my dad, he always say, "Yeah, I understand." You know, he says stuff and it's in a metaphor and.
Yesterday was a heck of a day working on the ductwork and dealing with a lot of insulation. My face is still burning from all that fiberglass, but that's just the way it is. I did wear some level of protective stuff, but there's just it just gets everywhere. It's hard to deal with. I think I'm going to go ahead and call this video, but I'm going to show you first what I got done and then ask your opinion on a few things that will be kind of big changes to what I've already done, but I think maybe worth it. But do try to think of it from the point of view of this being a rental house and not the most high-end rental house or anything like that. And also, I've already have improved things so much. This isn't a trick. I'm not going to pop up in 10 seconds smashing things apart. But just want y'all's actual opinion. First, we'll take a look at the ductwork, and I'll let you know what I've done. I decided to do 2 vents coming out of the wall in this room. So that one's going to blow, and this one's going to blow and basically just circulate the air in a full circle, versus if I just had one coming out the wall over here. I think this will cool more evenly. So there's one flex duct, and then it kind of wires off to this one, then continues on to this one. So I think that'll be much more even heating and cooling that way. So there's the box. You can barely see it, but that's up in there. So this 10-inch duct went up into that. Then it splits off 4 different ways with 6-inch flex duct. Flex duct being this stuff. It is a flexible insulated ductwork, and it has an inner tube insulation, then this outer reflective layer. So I need to extend that over to that box. One of those runs back and comes out of 2 registers that are in the ceiling in the other room. So I kind of went with that same thing, having 2 in this room. Then the other 2 coming out of that box, one will run over to the vent coming out the ceiling in the bathroom, and then the other one comes off the box, splits to this vent, then the other one continues across to the other vent. I am going to come back in and continue to wrap a little more insulation around that fitting there, that Y fitting, otherwise it can condensate and then it can drip water down onto the ceiling. So that's one thing you got to be careful of. If this was just rigid ductwork, it would just be condensation like crazy when the AC's on, because the pipe would be cold, then the air in the attic is warm and moist, so condensation forms and it drips. And condensation can cause a lot of issues with ductwork if it's not properly insulated or if the airspace is not treated around that duct. So you got to continue working on all this. It's very unpleasant, and I don't feel like filming it. So all it involves is me standing up on a ladder, digging around. You wouldn't even be able to see what I'm doing. So back to the question that I mentioned. Let me get in position. So here we are in the bathroom. Right where that flex duct is tucked in here, this is going to be the linen closet. But, and this is one of my lady viewers suggested this, so thank you. Mentioned the idea of getting a stackable washer and dryer, or at least plumbing in for one up here. Since you've got both bedrooms and the bathroom up here, having the washer and dryer up here would be handy to not lug it all to the basement. I already have the wiring and everything set up in the basement, which is fine. I think I'm going to leave it down there. There's no harm in having it there. But I could run electric and plumbing and waste lines up here and then push this wall back, which would reduce the size of the closet some, and then frame in for the washer and dryer here. So it's not as simple as what I just stated, but it wouldn't be that bad. I'm actually thinking what I would do is I would reduce the size this way. The width of the washer dryer unit is less than its depth, so I'm thinking I would put it to where it would face this way. So the toilet's here, and so basically it would be the depth of this wall, but I would push this whole corner that way and then have some sort of bifold doors that would fold up here, and then the unit would open up and be in there. So somebody could use that if they wanted. The problem is with putting that there, if I was to supply the stackable washer or dryer, it's about $1,300 when they're on sale. That's if they're new. Also, I'd have that level of water up here if something went wrong, but again, it's a bathroom. Anything could go wrong up here, and it could be a drips going down below. But if I just plumb in for it, it gives the person that lives here the option to buy their own and put it in. In my other rental houses, I have supplied washers, dryers, and so forth. And it's just, a lot of times it turns into a problem, because what people end up doing is they, I don't know, people break everything. My house still looks pretty new, and I've lived in it for 3 or 4 years, and I barely put any pictures on the wall because I don't want to poke holes in it, but that's because I renovated and paid for everything. And then so sometimes renters can be a little unnecessarily hard on things. It's to be expected, but I think when it comes to appliances, it's better to let them just buy their own, put them in, and they can do whatever they want. The problem with not offering, I'm getting into some landlording 101 here, the problem is if you don't put the units in yourself, especially a washing machine, somebody comes in with their old piece of junk washing machine and their 20, 30-year-old washer hoses, and then all of it goes wrong and it ends up being some huge plumbing leak while they're gone at work all day long, and there's 1,000 gallons of water gone to a house. So yeah, it's kind of a trade-off, something to consider. So y'all let me know what you think. I think that's pretty much it. I'll make my final decision whether or not where I want to end the video when I start doing my editing. But until then, keep on keeping on with your own projects. Thank you for all your watching. Check out the link to my ebook, How I Buy Cheap Houses. So for those of you who are not familiar with my videos and what I'm doing so far, I wrote an ebook. It talks about how I buy cheap houses like this one that I paid $9,000 for. Other ones I've paid $12,000, $2,000, $5,000, $8,000, $8,500, $11,000, prices like that. Some of those included closing, some of them didn't. It all varies depending on how complicated things get. But that's all very cheap. Houses that rent between $500 and $1,000 a month. So if you're interested in that type of thing, check it out. Also, there'll be plenty of links down in the description below. Suggested videos, including my new channel, which is currently named Launchpad. Again, still looking for a new name for that channel, but I'm talking about the financial side of what I do, real estate and other types of investing. And I'm actually going to go back tonight and try to film a few of those videos because I've been a little slow getting those filmed and posted due to all the work I've been doing here on this house. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.